Tell people more about that. So have you kind of experienced the woke mob mentality?
Oh, repeatedly.
Yeah.
And by the way, I've been called a conspiracy theorist. When after January 6th, which I condemned the violence immediately and repeatedly and forcefully, okay? But I also acknowledge the fact, as I did with the summer riots of 2020, the vast majority of those people participating in those protests, over 570 turned into riots, the vast majority of people in both cases, assembled peacefully. That was their intent, okay? But I've been vilified for pointing out that there weren't thousands of armed insurrectionists. I've been accused of being conspiracy theorist because I entered into our hearing record, the Joint Senate Committee hearing. I was on the Homeland Security. I used to be chairman of it, but we lost the majority, so I no longer was chair. So I was just a member of that committee, but I entered into the record of our investigation to January 6th, the J. Michael Waller eyewitness account. Now, he's an experienced observer of this. So he teaches at the War College. So he came to January 6th just to observe, and he observed. And before he watched any news coverage, he wrote down a 14-page eyewitness account. And to summarize his eyewitness account, is he saw 4 distinct groups of what he would call provocateurs. I would call them agitators. And that really pushed this. Okay.
So to clarify for the people back home, are you referring to the term agent provocateur when it's really kind of an inside intelligence operative that's stirring things up to escalate things?
I don't think that's how he was using the term, but he called these 4 distinct groups of people in the crowd that pushed all this, that were really the spearhead of the violence. He identified those. So I just entered his eyewitness account into our hearing record, and the chairwoman, Amy Klobuchar of the committee, came out immediately and said, Senator Johnson, he's spreading conspiracy theories. No, I entered the truth, an eyewitness account into the record. Now, it's maybe not the narrative you want. I mean, you wanted the narrative that there were thousands of armed insurrectionists. Did you see thousands of armed insurrectionists? Listen, again, there were areas of riots, okay? There was violence. We condemned it. But that's not what an armed insurrection would look like. You certainly wouldn't clean it up within 5 hours and get back to business later in the evening that night if you truly had an armed insurrection, yet that was the narrative. It was a false narrative, but it was a narrative that was designed politically to paint half America as potential domestic terrorists, which is why you end up with the Department of Homeland Security and the Justice Department under Biden suspecting Americans of being potentially domestic terrorists. Like, that's the greatest threat to this country. It's not.
So as somebody that has voted independent all my life, I don't have a horse in the race for Democrats or Republicans. As an outsider, it does seem like right-wing ideas are the most censored. For instance, on YouTube, and I don't even know if we have to bleep this out. It seems that way
because that's what it is.
Right. Why do you think that is, and what is the agenda?
Because the left controls the vast majority of the media. And they control the vast majority of the media because the left controls our university system. Again, I'm old enough. I saw the left take over our university system in the 60s. The Vietnam War protests, college administration capitulated, and the radical left and moved in and pretty well control universities. So they control College of Education, of journalism, and law. They control all the universities, but those are the 3 key education centers now that they control. So we're cranking out a bunch of lawyers who then become activist judges, legislate from the bench. We're cranking out not journalists that are unbiased, they're advocates for the left. And we're cranking out teachers that are happy to indoctrinate our children with all this woke ideology that is further dividing this country. And again, if you want to ask me, so I'm going to ask my own question, what concerns you most about this country? In the past, I would probably say what Admiral Mike Mullen said in 2010, 2011, the greatest threat to this country is our debt and deficit. Right now, I would say the greatest threat to this country is the divisiveness. But it didn't just happen. It is being pushed. It's being pushed by groups that are trying to convince other Americans that they're hated so that their group starts hating that group. It's just not true.
When you speak of woke ideology, what would you say is the front and center, the few couple talking points of like where wokeness is leading to the destruction of America?
Well, it's critical race theory. trying to educate our young people that based on their color determines their outcome. Whether they have privilege or whether they have any chance in life. And it's just wrong. I mean, I think America, by and large, embraced Martin Luther King's vision of America to judge people by the content of their character, not the color of their skin. I mean, I'm 68 years old. I've seen discrimination squeezed out of America. I have. It's not gone, but it's been dramatically reduced. Why don't we celebrate that success as opposed to exacerbate the divide? And that is what is happening. So critical race theory exacerbates the divide. Transgenderism. Listen, we're a compassionate nation, compassionate people. Anybody with true gender dysphoria, we have compassion for.